Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa.
And it's Tuesday night in Tuscaloosa. You know what that means. Tider Insider TV. Good evening, everybody, and welcome into the latest edition presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVOA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. We are loaded with content tonight, Rod, but I don't think it's a reach to say you probably know where we're going first. Alabama men's basketball making it back to the Sweet 16 for the third consecutive year, and 4 out of the last 5. Of course, last year all the way to the Final Four for the first time in school history. Alabama had to overcome St. Mary's physical style of play, their grinded out approach, running the shot clock down, but still, Alabama on Sunday advanced with an 80-66 win. Now, 80 might seem low for Alabama, but keep in mind this team had not given up 80 points in 105 games. It's basically 3 years. Alabama averaging 91.1, but get to 80 against this team? That was quite an accomplishment. 6 Alabama players scored in double figures, but it was balanced. Chris Youngblood led the way with 13, but also joining him in double figures, Grant Nelson, Cliff Amore, Mark Sears, Mo Diabate, and Aiden Holloway. So they were really, really efficient. They shot well from the field, and after taking care of Robert Morris, they now move on to the round of 16 Thursday night in Newark, Jersey against Brigham Young in Newark, New Jersey. But Rodney, let's get to this game and this first 2 games. You had told me to watch for Cliff Amore. You had said that. I know you said it on a radio show appearance. And boy, he's, I think, played his best 2 games maybe in the NCAA tournament all season.
He really did. I mean, he had 17 in the first game against Robert Morris, becoming a factor on the inside, Gary. And they needed that. I mean, with Grant Nelson kind of slowed a little bit, for Amari to kind of assert himself, that's something we've been waiting for all season.
And in those 2 games, 27 points and 15 rebounds. Plus, he did a good job on the bigs from the other 2 teams, Robert Morris and St. Mary's. And Alabama held St. Mary's to 3 of 14 from 3. So they did it on the defensive end as well. Again, I know a lot of people now that the game's over want to say, oh, St. Mary's, you played Robert Morris and St. Mary's. Let me tell you something. St. Mary's was a sleeper pick by a lot of people, and there were several analysts, national analysts, that picked them to beat Alabama.
Just before tip.
That's right. So it's a really good win. Alabama, if there was one thing there that they want to correct in the next game, they gave up 15 offensive rebounds against St. Mary's. But still, all in all, an impressive performance so far. Rodney, what makes it even more impressive is the fact, again, that this has become the norm for Nate Oats, going to the Sweet 16. The only time they didn't go to the NCAA tournament was the COVID year. So every year that they've been eligible, Nate Oats has put them into the NCAA tournament, and now 3 times in a row in the Sweet 16, a chance to get to another Elite 8 and a Final Four. Some polls had them preseason number 1. So to get through the season, the ups and downs, the injuries, didn't win the SEC regular season or the tournament championship, but now to be one of 16 teams left, including 7 from the SEC, pretty impressive.
It is impressive. I mean, it's similar, very similar, I think, to last year when we saw Alabama kind of at the end of the year, the tailspin that they had, if you want to call it that. Maybe this year the same thing. I think they lost, 5 of 8, and then they come into the NCAA tournament. People kind of down on them a little bit. Like you said, a lot of people, a lot of coaches. Avery Johnson picking St. Mary's to upset Alabama in the game.
Jay Wright.
Yeah, Jay Wright. So some respectable people in terms of opinions and knowledge of the game, we're picking St. Mary's. Obviously, they're a pretty good team.
Yeah, and let me say this about Robert Morris, too. When you're talking about the 16 seeds and the 15 seeds, they're not always created equal. And there's a lot of difference sometimes between a 16 seed and a 15 seed. Robert Morris was a regular season champion. They were a postseason tournament champion. That is a team that had a lot of home fans there. They're only 2 hours away in Cleveland from Pittsburgh. And they had Cam Woods, a former Pinson Valley star, who had a lot of incentive to play well against Alabama, and they played a tough game.
Gary, they won 10 straight games coming into the tournament. I mean, anytime you're on that kind of a roll, you're playing really well at the right time coming into the NCAA tournament. So I thought, they were peaking. Robert Morris was peaking. The first-round game's always tough. Once these teams get in the NCAA tournament, Gary, they're going to play on another level.
Survive and advance, and that's what Alabama has done so far. Well, now it's time for Coach Talk. Crimson Tide head coach Nate Oats thinks this team this year is better prepared for a Final Four run than the team last year that made it all the way to the Final Four. This year's team, he believes, Coach Oats does, that they have more depth, and that gives them a better overall team.
whether it's injuries, foul trouble, just depth to wear teams out, guys just not playing well, and you need somebody else to step up. I definitely think we've got it. Mo Diabate stepped up big in last year's run, even today. I mean, they went two bigs a lot. I mean, 2 7-footers out there. So he didn't play as many minutes. I mean, he had 10 and 5 and 15 minutes. So, we've got guys that have efficient games.
And now looking forward, as we mentioned, Alabama will play BYU on Thursday at 6:10 Central Time in Newark on CBS. Now, BYU is in the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2011. They knocked off a 3-seed Wisconsin. The Cougars have won 11 of the last 12 games. Ken Pom still gives Alabama a 66% chance to beat the Cougars. But this is a team, Rodney, that much like Alabama, when Mark Pope left for Kentucky, they wanted to keep that similar style, and they were able to do that. They brought in an assistant from the Phoenix Suns. They play fast. This is going to be a track meet, unlike the first two opponents for Alabama. And I tell you what, BYU can score, but I like Alabama's chances to be able to outscore them.
We might have both teams in the hundreds, huh?
Yeah, you could.
I mean, this is going to be a track meet, like you said, Gary. Both teams play a very, very similar style, loaded up, score a lot of points. So it's going to be a really exciting game. You're going to need Alabama, I think, defensively. It's going to have to play one of their better games, though.
What do you think in terms of, you mentioned the defense, and obviously you don't want to let, I mentioned Kevin Young, their coach. He's a lot like Nate Oats. He loves the three, and they can spread you around, and all their guys can shoot it. So I know they only gave up 3 3-pointers against St. Mary's, but this is going to be a different style team. You can't let them start getting hot from three, can you?
You can't. Again, I think we've seen it sometimes this season, Gary, when teams have hit some threes on Alabama, you got to defend it outside the arc.
Yeah, both these teams shot over 40% from three in their last game, so it might come down to that. I do think Alabama has an advantage inside, and again, nothing against BYU. They're good at what they do, but I don't think anybody is as good at playing this style. I think Alabama's the best at it. That's why they led the country in scoring, and I think BYU will find that out. Alabama opened as a 4.5-point favorite. They're now a 5.5-point favorite. Again, that game on Thursday night. All right, let's move on to the Alabama women, because they were trying to join the men in the Sweet 16. In fact, the Alabama women were trying to get to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 1998, and boy, like it was going to happen. They were up 17 with about 3 minutes and 23 seconds left to go in the third quarter. And give Maryland credit. They cut it down to 9 by the start of the fourth. They set themselves up. They came all the way back to tie it at 80. Sarah Ashlee Barker, more on her in a moment, hit a 3. Put Bama back up 83-80. But then Maryland tied it. Carly Weathers missed a shot at the buzzer. We went to overtime. Barker got fouled with 1.8 seconds to go in overtime on a 3. She was an assassin. Ice water in her veins. She made all 3 free throws. We went to a second overtime before Alabama fell 111-108. Rodney, it's just a heartbreaking loss. I mean, last night I was almost sick to my stomach. I wanted Alabama to win that game. And for Sarah Ashlee Barker to go for 45 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 steals. The 45 points is an Alabama school record. The 45 points is the most ever by an SEC player in the NCAA tournament, and it's the 4th highest scoring game all time in the NCAA tournament. She gave everything she had. I know it's not just about her, but I sure wanted to see them win that game so she could come back to Birmingham and play in front of her friends and family.
It would have been great. I mean, she laid it out there. I mean, she left everything on the court, like you said. I mean, when you look at it, it's not only one of the great, if maybe the greatest individual performance in Alabama basketball history, women's basketball, but it certainly ranks up there as one of the top in the NCAA tournament.
You and I have said all year, this was a Sweet 16 caliber team. Clearly they were, even though they didn't make it. And maybe even, who knows, could have even gone further. But it was a really good team. It was an experienced team, a veteran team. Now you're going to lose Barker. You're going to lose Zay Green. You're going to lose Aaliyah Nye, 3 of your best players, maybe your 3 best players. You got to try to keep this going. You do have a great player coming in. Maybe remember Sarah Ashlee Barker actually went to Georgia for 2 years out of high school before she transferred to Alabama. But Ace Austin from Spring Garden, I think she's won like 5 straight state championships. They've beaten 5A teams and 6A teams. She's a little smaller. She's 5'7", but she is, I think, a special player as a freshman. They got some other good players in. But, Rodney, do you think they can keep the momentum going next season and maybe next year break through and get to the Sweet 16 or beyond?
Yeah, you hope so. I think, though, Gary, this and I know Christy Curry's been here a while, but what you saw Alabama, if you're not excited watching what they did, watching the style of play, I think, obviously Sarah Ashlee Barker is turning, her performance turns heads, it attracts attention, attracts recruits, those types of things. I think Alabama now is a team that when you go recruit, you can recruit those style of players that bring that exciting brand.
Yeah, I'm sure I wasn't the only one, but I texted Jay last night, her dad, Jay Barker, former Alabama national championship quarterback, and all he basically said was just how proud he was of her.
Oh, absolutely.
And, they would have loved to have gotten back to Birmingham, but what a special game.
I thought she might pull off a Jay Barker. He won a lot of games in the last second.
And she did everything that she could. All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama football gearing up for its first scrimmage of the spring. They were back at practice today. Plus, Alabama has been busy on the recruiting trail. We'll have the latest prospects that have visited. Rodney's going to have a recruiting breakdown for you. Nobody does it better. That's coming up next on TITV. And in just a little bit, we're going to get to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, that phone number, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. You can email us at the address on your screen. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the award-winning Tider Insider TV. And we're back here on TITV, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Go to visittuscaloosa.com. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Alabama football taking its spring practice sessions to the next level, so to speak, on Thursday when it steps into Bryant-Denny Stadium for the first time. Rodney, Alabama will hold a scrimmage, and we know how important these are in terms of you've been practicing, but now you kind of want to get on the field, Rodney, even if it's just the coaches and it's not like a game, but in some ways it is. It's the first chance to see these guys line up 11 on 11 and go full speed and have, tackling and kicking and all the things that go with a scrimmage.
Everything we've heard so far, Gary, pre-spring break, and then since they've come back after a 10-day spring break period, that they came back with a really good attitude, a lot of intensity, a lot of focus, a lot of excitement about what they're doing. And I think attitude is a really big thing. So as you head into this scrimmage, right now, Gary, generally when you talk about spring practice, the defense is ahead. And the thing you kind of pick up right now, again, practices are closed. We've only had one limited viewing period, but talking to people around the observed practices, they say, hey, look, this defense has a chance to be really, really good. The defense is ahead of the offense, which is generally what you want at this time of the year. So that's good news. Offensively, that doesn't mean that they're way behind. I think when you look at some of the offensive line situation with Caden Proctor out, Wilkin Formby was out earlier. They've had some guys out, but you got three quarterbacks that are competing for that job. All those guys doing a really good job. Sounds like they're all three taking positive steps, which is good. They've got a receiver core that I think next year is going to be really good. They're going to take a big step on the receiving in that group. Running backs, solid group. So I'm really excited to hear how the offense stacks up on Thursday.
Fans hear scrimmage, and I think they think, oh, wow. Do we overplay it? I mean, is it more important? The fans make more out of it. I mean, it's they're grading these guys every practice. How important are the actual scrimmages in regard to who's going to ultimately win these jobs in the fall?
Well, I think right now, Gary, what it is each player has an opportunity to improve. And, I mean, take that next step. This is an opportunity if you're Ty Simpson, you're Austin Mack, Keelan Russell, to kind of get a feel. Going up in a game-type situation. But that goes for every position, where you stack up, things that you can do, how you can improve, different things. So I think it's really that learning experience, that developmental piece to it. I think that's really what's important at this point. Now, as far as you starting to talk about competition for positions, I mean, yeah, you're laying the foundation for that, but that really comes later.
Yeah. All right, let's get from what's happening on the field right now to the players in the future that will be on the field, hopefully. And it's all about recruiting. It's still early in the 2026 process, Rodney, but Alabama has had a lot of top targets on campus, have more lined up for official visits, coming up in June, and unofficial visits going on now. 11 four-star prospects visit Alabama this past weekend, and they've got more coming. What's the latest on the recruiting trail?
Well, I think, again, we talked about it last week, getting guys on campus, getting top players, which is what they're doing doing. You're talking about like a 4-star linebacker. Nick Abrams was in here from Owing Mills, Maryland last week. He's a top player. Caden Hall out of Milton, Florida is a linebacker safety. Jamarian Matthews, who's already committed to Alabama out of Gainesville, Georgia. Really, he's from Madison Sparkman. He's transferring to Gainesville, Georgia. Over the weekend, they had Elijah Golden.
I like Elijah Golden a lot.
He's one of the top defensive linemen in the country. That's a position of need now, I'm telling you. 4-star offensive lineman Sam Atu from Orange, California, one of the top offensive linemen in the country, along with Micah Smith from Vero Beach, Florida. That's another top offensive lineman. We talked about defensive lineman, another one, Nolan Wilson.
Yeah, I like him a lot too.
From Pecune, Mississippi. So he's really good. Now, a guy to maybe keep an eye on. 4-star cornerback Jordan Edmonds. Some people think he might be the #1 cornerback in the country out of Marietta, Georgia. He was here. He almost committed to Alabama about a month ago. Sounds like he might be pretty close again. Anthony Davis is a 4-star linebacker out of Georgia, and another one, Drake Quinn, is an outstanding player out of the state of Georgia, another outside linebacker type. Now, a 4-star athlete, Roman Voss out of Jackson, Minnesota. This guy, Garrett's a really versatile player. Could play tight end, could play multiple positions. He's a quarterback a lot in high school. Kevin Ford is a top outside linebacker, defensive end type from Duncanville, Texas. He was a teammate of Keelan Russell. Scott's an outstanding player in the state of Texas. You kind of get the drift. We've rattled off a lot of names. A lot of these guys are top targets for not only Alabama, but several of the top programs around the country. So getting those guys on campus, extremely important. What you're doing is you're laying the foundation for summer visits in June when a lot of those guys are going to come back for official visits.
Yeah, I told you, knows his stuff. Of course, you've been watching this for 25 years. You already know that. That is a fast-paced recruiting update. Well, still to come on TITV, a recap of Alabama's baseball series against #1 ranked Tennessee. It was a good one. And also, coming up next, your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Phone calls been off a little bit lately. Bama's playing baseball again tonight, but it's up in Huntsville and it's not on TV. So let's get those phone calls in. 205-348-9882. We're coming right back with more TITV after this. All right, Bama baseball hosted #1 ranked Tennessee on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday over at the Joe, and that is Rob Vaughn getting his money's worth. He got tossed in that one. Bama won the first game 6-5, so promising start, but Tennessee came back to take the next two, 10-7 and 9-2 on Saturday to win the series. On Saturday, Rob Vaughn, as you saw, got ejected for arguing balls and strikes, but still, Alabama swept A&M. They got one against Tennessee, so they're still 4-2 in the league, only 3 losses overall. They're playing North Alabama, the Lions, tonight up in Huntsville at Toyota Field, and I'm going to have highlights from that game on WUA 23 News at 10. All right, welcome back into the program with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. It is time to take some phone calls now, and nobody ever told me who the phone caller is, so somebody fill me in. Hey, listen. How'd they miss out on Sammy? My man Sammy, the tomato man, up there in Walker County. Nobody grows those big vine-ripened tomatoes quite like Sammy. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Gary, Rodney, glad to hear from y'all guys and everything. Great job on recruiting there, Rodney and Gary. I want to comment on the quarterback situation and get y'all's take on it, but I think Ty Simpson has just got to be comfortable in his own skin and get comfortable in the position. And I'm looking for the coaches to either go with him or Russell, but I believe Ty Simpson, if he can just kind of get comfortable in his own skin, I believe he'll be the man. What's y'all's take?
Sammy, I think those are some really good comments, and I think it's true. I think, Ty just has to be Ty. I think he's got a lot of tools. I really like his tools. I mean, it's just a matter of gaining some experience. None of these guys have much experience. Even Ty, as long as he's been around, doesn't have a lot of game experience, And I wouldn't count out Austin Mack. He's got 6'6" plus. He's got a tremendous arm. He's been in this system for a while. Guy's really talented. You mentioned Keelan Russell. Again, he's extremely gifted. There's a lot of buzz about how much he reminds people of Jaden Daniels, and I can see that. I mean, he's a really talented guy. At the same time, I think Ty's maturity right now. That's the area, Sammy. I think he's taken the biggest step.
Yeah,
he's really just gained a lot of maturity.
Yeah, I just think I was blessed to have 3 really talented quarterbacks for this competition. All right, when we come back, our email question of the day, plus more of your phone calls. If you want to give us a ring, 205-348-9882. Go ahead and dial us up. We'll be back with more TITV right after this timeout. All right, time flies when you're having fun, and we're up against it a little bit, so we're going to get right to our email question of the day, brought to you by KDM Service Corporation, serving your family like our family. All right, our email question of the day is from Jim in Sparks, Nevada. Really appreciate Sarah Ashlee Barker's play. I predict that she will one day be Alabama's head coach. It could happen. Now, I'm hoping, even though I know she wants to be a coach, I'm hoping, Rodney, that she gets a crack in the WNBA, because I certainly think she's good enough.
Listen, I definitely believe she's good enough, but I'm going to tell you something. I understand that comment about her being a coach. She's out there directing traffic.
She sure is.
I mean,
she's already coaching.
I hate to say this and put it like this, but she really was a quarterback on the court.
Yeah, what a player. All right, we got a couple phone calls we're going to try to get to real quick. Let's go to Rick over in Brent. Hey, Rick, how are you?
I'm fine. How are y'all doing?
Doing well.
Great. Has Nate Oats ever explained why he refuses to run any type of zone? Because St. Mary's was 0 for 9 for 3, and I thought that would be a great defense.
Yeah. You know, he has run it a little bit, very little. I agree. It's just not what he does. I mean, he's got a system that he runs. You know, some coaches don't. You know, Jim Boeheim didn't run man-to-man. I mean, all he did was run zone. So, Rick, the best way I can tell you is that's just what he is. He's a defensive man-to-man coach. And, all right, we're going to get one more call in real quick. David in Northport.
Hey, guys, I was just wanting to get a quick rundown of after this season in basketball, what players they might be looking to sign, who might be in the transfer portal that they might be looking at.
Well, Ronnie,
thanks.
Yeah, thank you, David. Rodney, they've already got 3 players signed for the upcoming season.
They do. Amari Allen, a 6'6" forward from up in Wisconsin. They've got Davian Hanna, a 6'5" guard out of Branson, Missouri. And also London Jemison out of St. Thomas More up in Connecticut. He is a 6'8", 195-pound forward. And, Gary, there's a lot of chatter about what could happen in this portal.
Yeah.
This transfer portal could get very interesting.
But it's way too early right now. The portal's just opening up. We'll wait and see on that. But I guarantee they're going to have a talented roster. All right. Thanks for the phone calls and the email. We are going to take a time out, and we're going to come back and continue TITV right after this. All right, a couple other quick notes. Bama softball at North Alabama tomorrow night. Alabama qualified for their NCAA Gymnastics Regional, which they're hosting next week. Ashley Johnston will be back with us next week. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of TITV. If you missed it, we'll have a replay tonight at 10:30, or you can find it anytime at WVUA23.com. Well, this past Sunday, I had the opportunity to host a question and answer session with 2009 Heisman Trophy winner Mark Ingram. The Q&A was presented by MasterCard as part of a fundraiser for Alabama Credit Union Secret Meals for Hungry Children. What a great program. Rodney, he's just as good a guy now as he was when he played. He is awesome. I had a lot of fun. All right, that's going to do it for TITV. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.